Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS 82 apostrophe with episode, is it 9, I think? Something weird, just a thought, and remember, it's just a thought, man. You can bail anytime you want. This is probably going to be a long one, so we'll see. But what are we talking about here, man? Tom freaking Atkins for 1, Halloween for 2, what could have been 3, my angst over the last trilogy, 4, and we'll just, I don't know, go from there, man. But before I get all the you're a hater thing, just know I've seen every one of the new trilogy movies in the theater, and I own on physical media the entire trilogy. So that licensed me to not only have an opinion, but share the opinion. So you can bail anytime. Anyways, that being said, I am a Rob Zombie fan, and I'm not going to apologize for that either. I refuse to apologize. I think some of it has to do with we are both byproducts of the 1970s, and the more I hear that man talk on interviews, podcasts, whatever, commentary tracks on his films, he is the only director I have ever heard who refers to his love of Evel Knievel. I grew up with that, man. Had the toy and everything. Space 1999, Eagle 1 toy. Had that. Played with it all the time. God, what was the other one? The fact that he wouldn't let anyone call him Bob because that was his dad's name, and apparently there was something there. Same thing. My real dad's name is Bob, and so when people tried to call it, I had a real big problem because, for various reasons, choice was made for him and my mom to move on when I was really young. But the point being is every time I listen to this guy talk, I don't know. It's like I've never heard anyone who I share so many things in terms of, and a lot of it must be, now I think he was born in 68, I was born in 70, but still, by 75, the world of the 70s was starting to open up to me. I mean, beginning with Jaws in 75, at least in terms of cinema, right, and movies. But let's talk Halloween here, and let's talk why I'm even bringing this up. I've seen this movie Trick. It's a Patrick Lussier film, 19, I believe. Going on memory here. I'm pretty sure it was 19. Thought I would have wrote it down somewhere. 19. I was right. Hey, look at that. Anyways, this is a Patrick Lussier film, and his boy there who writes Patrick Lussier, and come on now, where's his name? Todd Farmer. I don't know how I forgot that. So I was pressed by Jason over at Horrific Nightmares. I'm pretty sure it was him, to give this a watch, and I happened to be in my shop. I think I picked it up at Dollar Tree. Where did those days go when we could pick up a pile of movies there? It's been so long. And but this is Omar Epps and Jamie Kennedy, Tom Atkins, from the director, of course, My Bloody Valentine remake. And so I did watch it, and this was a pretty good movie, man. This was a lot of fun. Apparently, it was the I think, according to Jason, it was the script that should have been used for Scream 3, but then it got leaked, and so therefore it wasn't used. And so, scripts just hang around and lay around. But also, too, more for me personally, this felt like Patrick and Todd's way of getting Halloween out of their system. Perhaps. What do I mean by that exactly? Well, I thought the German release of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch was the only place that you could hear it, but if you got the new Blu-ray, this set, or any Blu-ray, I guess, set of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, there is a Tom Atkins commentary track. I can't remember who moderated off the top of my head. And he gets into a conversation towards the end, a Halloween-related conversation. And I'll never forget the very first time I ever heard it. It was on my German release from S&M Records that I picked up in Germany, or from Germany, not in Germany. Just like I ordered this bad boy from Germany just because I love the cover art, Zombies H2. Again, I'm not going to apologize. I refuse. Anyways, there's a commentary track there. Towards the end, Tom Atkins gets into this conversation on Halloween. And now, My Bloody Valentine came out in 09. H2 came out in 09. So Rob was wrapping up his work, his due diligence on his films. And Patrick Lucy and Todd Farmer killed it with My Bloody Valentine remake. Unfortunately, they wouldn't kill it with Drive Angry. We'll get there. So on the commentary track, Tom Atkins talks about how I think he had already been solicited, well, for My Bloody Valentine, because he's in there, and then he'll be in Drive Angry. And but on the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch soundtrack, or film, on the commentary, he gets into this conversation about the Patrick and Todd had already written a script for what really, in effect, now, you got to go back, okay? Before the trilogy, before the new trilogy, right? This John Carpenter, in part inspired, David Gordon Green trilogy. There was a lot of pissing and moaning going on from the Carpenter camp and fans mostly, probably, and then eventually Carpenter himself, as to not being so happy at what Zombie had created. Even though Zombie's own recollections talks about how he went to John for a blessing, and John said, hey man, as he always does, make it yours, because the only thing he cares about is getting a paycheck at the end of the day. And he has said that himself, so I'm not putting words in his mouth. And so anyways, Tom Atkins talks about how he was asked and was cast, was early, pre-cast, but cast into what was going to be a third Halloween extension, third Halloween film. But what it was going to do, apparently, it was, now some of this I'm recollecting on other things I've heard, but Tom Atkins, just specifically, basically the story was going to keep Rob Zombie's world, bring back Scout Taylor Compton Scout, bring back Brad Dourif as Brackett. A lot of the movie is going to revolve around him, but Tom Atkins was going to be Laurie's psychologist. So it was going to take, I think, in large part, take place in an asylum, a psychiatric unit where Laurie has been sent to in the aftermath of the events of H2. And so it's going to bring back some of the core members who are still alive, obviously. And now, again, you have your alternate cuts and endings, theatrical endings to both films. And but who they could bring back reasonably, they were going to bring back. And so it was going to be like a compromise of just, let's maintain the characters and the world that Rob had built, but let's bring it back to a little bit more of a Carpenter feel. And so really the best of both worlds. And why wouldn't you not want that? I mean, all the hard work, and plus Halloween, Rob Zombie's movie, and we could spend all day talking about that, but that made a killing. That brought back a lot of money. And for what little or no marketing H2 got, thanks to the Weinstein brothers, that brought in money. Really what we should have had was 2 complete films from Rob. The whole thing was going to be filmed as one film, broken in 2 pieces. One Halloween release, the second Halloween, the second part release. And that is why his movie feels like 2 movies crammed into one, because it was really supposed to be 2 separate movies. He was not planning on doing H2. But when the director, for whatever reason, got fired or dropped out, whatever, Rob just happened to be at the right place at the right time, talking with the right person, and was made aware that, the project was still there. They were wanting to push forward on it, but they didn't have a director, and so he figures, it's my vision, it's my world, I've created it. If I don't grab it now, I'll never get the chance again. And so he did it. And to the chagrin of many who hate H2 and hate Halloween, he did it. And I love H2, and I know a lot of people who absolutely love H2, and I know there's tons of people that absolutely hate H2. But when all the pissing and moaning starts, and let's pretend Zombies movies never happened, and when you watch the trilogy, you know for a fact that's not the case, because Rob's hands are imprinted, his vision is imprinted all over these movies. Halloween has never, ever, ever been as violent as it would get in this trilogy. But that is a consequence, I guess, of his two films. And I could pull up scenes. I mean, the head crushing, and there's things, right? I think the best thing about David Gordon Green's trilogy is the fact that John went back and revamped the score. Okay. So Tom Atkins paints this incredible picture where he is, who doesn't love Tom Atkins? He is going to be Laurie's doctor. It's all cast. It's all there. His reason for the rug being pulled out from under them was the fact that Drive Angry, that came out in 2011, apparently was made for 50 mil, only brought in 40 mil. And so he said that was the excuse. They pulled the rug out from under the proposed Halloween script, which it seemed like everything was moving in motion to happen. Now, Halloween, of course, we know will come out in 2018, and the trilogy will be disrupted by COVID and everything. But thinking, and now it's funny, I did a video 5 years ago, and that's the other thing I remembered. I had done a video about 5 years ago when the news first was breaking that we were going to get the beginnings of what would probably be a new trilogy removed from Rob's two horrible movies, at least according to some. I was pretty unhappy, and I dropped the video down there. It is down there. If you want to take a trip 5 years back and hear what someone was thinking before David Gordon Green's movie hit the screen, there's a person. It's me. It's my opinion about how I felt at the time. Now we got the trilogy out of our system. It's done, and for better or worse, it's so hilarious to think about how happy everyone was at the news that we could finally forget Rob's two movies and be done with that whole fiasco. And it's so funny to hear all the hate pour on Halloween Ends. And as it would happen, that's my favorite entry of the trilogy. I absolutely love the beginning of that. I love how it opens, and I dig the whole movie. It's one of those Halloween films that it will be remembered later on, kind of like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch has been remembered later on. Halloween 5 gets a lot more love now these days. So it just, this whole thing, watching Trick, it really feels like, they were really upset that they had this opportunity pulled out from them. And I'm upset it was pulled out. When you hear, and I'm actually surprised it was left on the commentary track, but to hear Tom Atkins sort of paint this picture of what could have been, and to think of the third installment could have made a lot of people happy. It could have brought back that original Halloween feel, but Rob is no longer the director. You've got two other guys who, as I said earlier, completely nailed it out of the park with My Bloody Valentine in terms of what the money it brought back. I think they paid $15 million to make it, and I want to say 21 million the opening week, 50 million. I can't remember how much it made ultimately, but 21 million opening week. So I mean, it killed it in its opening week, and I think it went on to make quite a bit of money. And so the fact that Drive Angry just fell short of having lost a little bit, that's the whole reason they didn't do it. It is because of all the pissing and moaning that was going on, all the Rob Zombie hate, Carpenter suddenly, for whatever reason, not being happy with what had become of Halloween under Rob's direction, wanted to distance. Now, I have not heard either him or Rob specifically, but I have heard that the two have reconciled since then, which is great. I mean, because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's the only thing that really matters, is relationships being restored. There's nothing we can do about the lost Halloween 3 film that could have, been pretty outstanding to watch. But we have a trilogy, and Michael graced the screen for, at least 2.5 films. That's a joke on the third one. So we got Halloween again. And so it's never a bad thing at the end that you get Halloween. It's just, I don't know. And maybe I'm just, as I said in my intro down or my notes, I feel like, I can fall victim to, kicking a dead horse too often. But this one, I feel like my foot is permanently caught in the carcass and I can't pull it out. Seeing Trek and, sort of started to bring all that back. And then, so I revisited the commentary track on Halloween 3 and just listened to Tom again talk about it. And this is the thing, too. This would have been the only time in Halloween franchise history that somebody would have been in both part 3s. So, obviously, he was in Season of the Witch, but he theoretically could have gone on to be in a movie where Michael would have been in there. And of course, that's talked a lot about in the commentary track as well. So anyways, I don't know how much more I want to go on with this. I just find it interesting, and I'm sure some of you are going to latch onto this and hear it, and maybe some of you have never even heard. And if you have Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and it has its separate Tom Atkins commentary track, his comments on it are towards the end of the film, but the entire commentary is great to listen to. When it's listening, to Tom Atkins, not fun. And just the possibilities. And it's too bad because, you got Scout and all the work that she put in, Brad, all the work he put in, whatever you think about Malcolm McDowell's, theoretically, I always thought for part 3, had it happened the way I wish it would have happened, it would have been great to bring Udo Kier back in his role from Rob's movies and have him be sort of your new Loomis, if you want to run with the fact that Loomis, in fact, is killed at the end of, I can't remember, the alternate end or the theatrical end. But if you want to leave Malcolm off by the wayside, how great would it have been to bring Udo Kier back for that sort of role? But Brad, I don't care what anyone says, man. Brad, Scout, Daniel Harris, those 3 absolutely murdered it in a positive way. Murdered it in H2. Scout's, her trauma that she exhibits on screen as an actress absolutely blows. I don't care what anyone says. It blows Jamie Lee Curtis's performance in Halloween 1 and 2 of the new trilogy. It blows it out of the water. She has nothing on Scout. Absolutely nothing. Now, I'll say this. With Halloween Ends, I love Jamie Lee Curtis in that movie. That is the character. It felt more comfortable in who she ought to have been. She just does not, whether she can or not, maybe it's the direction, at least in terms of Halloween, she cannot do trauma very good. Now, Scout and Daniel together, they nailed it, man. That is what trauma, maybe that's the problem, is Halloween is, Rob's movies were too, you think of Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, it's too much steeped in realism. And in terms of the relationships that, and which makes complete sense. Trauma can do that to people. Danielle Harris, her character flips, Scout's character flips, and it creates an interesting set of dynamics between the two. And then, of course, you bring Margot Kidder in there, and if I wanted to nitpick anything, maybe, Malcolm McDowell's character in H2, but then again, people do that too. I mean, so I don't know. I don't understand all the hate. I don't know. But I'll say this: H2 is the only, and if I had the money, I would have other Halloween posters up. Believe me, or the space. But as it would have it, I have the giant 27 by 40, whatever, huge poster of H2. It's beautiful, framed on my wall. I'm a huge fan of H2. And I'm a huge fan of what could have been had Patrick Lucia and Todd Farmer had their script approved and green-lighted and moved forward. And I think we could have had the best of both worlds. The people who hate Rob Zombie would have been happy because he wouldn't have been directing, but it would have been, his world would have been, continued to be explored. But you would have had a drawback to, the good old days, whatever those are, of what Halloween had been in terms of its it's whatever you want to count. Anyways, so there's my little rant on Halloween. If you didn't hear, John Carpenter apparently may be going back in the director's seat for a follow-up to The Thing. Can he capture lightning in a bottle twice? We were talking to Body Bags the other night about that, and it's funny, the initial reaction by some of us was, I hope he can, if he actually gets it and has the complete, ability to make the movie he wants to make and finally return to that subject matter, which is The Thing, it's got to be better than the prequel, right? But the prequel could have been great too if it wasn't for all the freaking studio interference. And that's really, in the end, man, a lot of why movies fail is studio interference. In the end, I mentioned that on Inferno recently with Dario's admission of his relationship to 20th Century Fox and how all that went down. It just seems like there is no end of the trauma that is endured by directors having to work with the studios. So, anyways, I'm a fan, man. I am a fan of Rob's movies. I don't apologize for it. I really could care less. I freaking love it, and I wish it would have been extended. And it's too bad it wasn't. But I love the entire franchise. And so if you ever want to see, if you're curious about, if you haven't seen Trick, check that out. It's really too bad those guys couldn't get it. But in the end, we're all Halloween enthusiasts. And if you don't have this trilogy, you ought to, just because, it's Halloween. What did they say in Rob's movies? It's Halloween, baby. With that, we'll end this off with Go Bills.